All right, so I'm going to show you how to put together this world's simplest motor kit. Easy to build and it's educational. All right, so all you need is some sandpaper and a D-cell battery. All right, so let's take this thing, open it up. It's like Christmas. So you take everything, and it's got directions. We don't need those. If you want to read directions, you can. Pull everything out. I think that's everything. All right, put this over here. So you can start by assembling this thing, right? Because we're going to need this here. So let's take this, and these go pointing in, right? These things point in. So I'm going to show you how to put this in. So I take these little copper things, the long part like this goes in here, and you push it in like that, and you want these two things pointing in at each other, right? So that when you put the battery in there, they push on the battery, right? If you do it the other way, that's tough luck because it's not going to work as good. Okay, so you want those two things facing in. So push those all the way down like this until it sticks up like that, right? So here's the inside. Okay, and then I can stick the magnet there too. And this is the fun part. So here's the coil. So take your wire and unwrap it first off. The fun part is finding where the wire actually starts. It would be super helpful for whoever makes these to not wrap this 500,000 times and get all these bends in it, but whatever. There we go. Okay. So once you've got all that mess done, you can take it and gently uncoil it, right? You don't want to make any kinks in the wire. So take it and kind of gently uncoil it, and then take your finger or something and kind of try to straighten it out. You don't want any like hard kinks in it. So make sure you don't like tighten it and do that. Make sure everything is straight, because if you get any kinks in it, I mean, it's not like you're going to power a race car with this, but still, it'll work worse if you have any kinks. So kind of try to straighten everything out, right? Okay. Once you have that, that creates a lot of friction if you do it that way, and it burns your fingers. Fun fact. So I got my wire. What you're going to do is you're going to take the battery and you're going to wrap the wire around the battery, right? So I'm going to leave like about 2 inches, right? So I'm just going to, I don't know. That's about 2 inches, whatever. And I'm going to start here, and I'm going to wrap around the battery a coil. And I mean, if you're doing a real solenoid, you want to keep them in order, right? But this isn't, like I said, we're not like shooting people to the moon with this. So you can just wrap it around. As long as you don't get any kinks or cross it over, you'll be fine. So just keep wrapping, and then about like that. That's good. Okay, so once you have that, you're going to take it and gently take the battery out, and voila, you have a coil, right? Okay, so here's what you're going to do. So with this coil, we want to take this and use the coil. Like this is not the good way to make a solenoid, because these coils you make are going to kind of interfere with the magnetic field, but whatever, right? This is just a demonstration. So kind of fix up your coil a little bit, and then bring one down here, and you're going to put it inside, right, or outside, however's easier, and you're going to wrap it around twice. So I went in like that, right? And it helps if you don't have big fingers, right? So maybe you'll be lucky. And so that's once, and that's twice, and I'm going to do it one more time because it looks like crap. Right, and that should be, yeah, it's long enough. Right, so it looks like that. Can you see? There we go. Okay. And then now I'm going to do the other side. All right, so there we go. So here's my coil, and see I wrapped that coil around twice, and I wrapped that coil around twice, and this thing won't focus. There we go. So here's my coil. Okay, so what you're gonna do now is we need to sand off. This enamel coating makes these wires not short circuit, right? So inside there's copper, but this is like enamel paint on it so that the wire doesn't short circuit. So we need to sand off the top, right, of just the top. If you sand the whole wire, it's not gonna work. Just the top side of these two wires, right? And yes, I know that it's a circle, so there's not really a top, but like this, right? So you take your sandpaper, and I'm just going to hold it like this. I'm going to put my finger underneath. I'm just going to take the sandpaper, and it helps. This is where it helps if it's really straight. Put my finger under there, right? Try to hold it the same, and just use the sandpaper to scrape off the enamel. Only on the top, right? I can't stress that enough. Only on the top of the wire. Okay, so here's my wire. You can kind of see if this will focus. See how that part is copper, and then if I flip it over, you got the enamel. You can see the copper there. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit and do the other side. And when you get to this part, make sure you do the same side, right? Because otherwise your circuit won't connect. So if I did the top here, make sure you don't flip it over and do the other side. I sanded this top off, so I'm going to sand the other top off. All right, so there we go. So I got my wire here sanded, and then when I flip it over, I should be able to still see the enamel. Okay, so now we can try this thing out and see if it works. So I got my magnet in there. I'm gonna take my battery, stick my battery in, and then I'm gonna put this down on here, and you spin it, and wow. If it doesn't work, you might need to make sure that you've sanded all the way to those posts, because the connection between the wire, the sanded part of the wire, and these posts is what's going to cause it to work, right? So if you don't sand far enough down, then it doesn't work. But let me... Wow, success. There you go. Okay, so I had to get a new battery because my battery sucked. But what I did also to make it work was put the coil and kind of just a little bit bend it in like this, right? So instead of being circular, so that way it doesn't hit this. So like when you put it on, you put it between those two posts and it sits like this, right? And so the problem I was having is that my coil was touching. See if I can hold this. My coil was touching down here. So when I fixed it, I just put it on there and give it a little push, and wow, you're basically Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla, depending on who you like. Fun stuff. Physics rules. 5 minutes later, It's still going. It's like magic. And as soon as I look at it, it stops.